Hello guys, welcome back. So in this video here, we are going to create this simple application here where we're going to fetch the data from an API, and then we're going to display the image and the name of the actor and also the real name of the actor. So this one's going to be just a simple beginner tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now before we begin here to start our coding, we can just come here to use the Gradle, and you can see here there are several dependencies which I have added here. So you can just go to the link in the description box below and go to the GitHub page and copy these dependencies and you're good to go. Now, also before we start here, let's jump to the website where we are going to get this data and familiarize ourselves with the endpoints and the URL, which we can use then to retrieve this data. So this is the website here, and you can see this one is going to be hpapi.brookerapp.com. So you can just navigate to this website here and you can just get this. And here we have a list of several endpoints which we can just retrieve different data. And the creator is saying that is not going to be updating this API, but we can try to use it for different purposes like learning. So for now here, as you can see here, we have the characters, we have students, and for our case, we're going just to focus on these characters here. So we can just right click here and we can open this inside a new tab here. And as you can see here, we have the data. So if you're just getting this raw data here, you can just open up here and search for JSON viewer online, and you can copy this and paste them, and you can just get something which is going to be neat. This one here. So here we have an array. So for example, if you see here, when you see this brackets here, these spinning brackets here, this means an array inside JSON. And when you see these curly braces, this means that we are going to have an object, and this object has several parameters. So for our case here, so if we open here our first item inside the array, which is an object, and this object contains, so for example, in Kotlin, this could be a data class, and here we have several properties which are going to be used to access them. And as you can see here, we have other curly braces which represents another object inside this object here, and this one represents the array. So we can just come here to this raw data here, and we can copy this enter to this place here because we just want this one object here so that we can transform them. So I'm going to show you inside Android Studio how you can easily transform. As you can see here, we have a lot of data, and just creating these classes and other things could be difficult. So for example, if you have a lot of classes to create, so there is just a simple plugin which you can use to pass in the JSON and converting that to a data class which can be easily used. So let's jump inside Android Studio and show you how you can do that. Okay, now so that we can bring that data class and change from the JSON to these Kotlin classes, we can just come here and we can press Ctrl-Alt-S here in order to go to the plugins. So you should not just directly here, you can just locate the plugin here and select this, and you can come here and search for. And as you can see, we have this Kotlin class, and you can just install this. Going to download the, and after that it's going to install. Okay, now after installing this, now we can create here data classes, and first and foremost here we can create several packages so that we can organize our code. So here we're going to create a data class. So here we're going to put inside here our data, and here we can create our API package. And inside here API package, we can create another package here, and we can call the data, then call this model. So here we're going to just get our models, and we can create a new Kotlin class. Then you're going to get this Kotlin data class file from. So we can do this, and we can paste here our code. And as you can see here, you can just navigate here to advanced, and we are going to change this. And we can come here to annotation, and from here it's just selecting none. So we can select this Moshi Kotichin, and then it's going to generate the code for us. And here we have to provide the name of this. So here we are going just to call this character. Let's click here, generate. And as you can see here, it has generated two data classes. So we can just open up here. And as you can see inside here, now we have the character. And this has generated a lot of things for us. So as you can see here, we are going to use Moshi for passing the data from the JSON directly to here the Kotlin classes. So for our case here, we have the data classes, which is a character. So we are getting here from the JSON object, and then the Moshi converter is going to convert this to what Kotlin can easily understand. And for this case, is the data class. As you can see, it's going to generate the adapter. And when you see this, we are going to pass in here at JSON, and here we are passing a name. So there is different ways which JSON names their object or properties, and it's just different from Kotlin. So as you can see here, the server is going to send up the alternate, and then here we have this slash here, then we have actors. And as you can see here, the alternate colors, we have the naming convention for Kotlin. This must be a capital letter. So in order to change this, we can use this JSON name, and the adapter is going to change up and match what we need. And for that case here, now we have our JSON, and when you come here, it has generated another class, which is going to be a round class here. If you want to use it, you can just get it, and also it generates an adapter. Okay, now here we can just come, and as you can see here, it is just returning a list of any, because this one is going to be empty, but the server is going to return here string, so we can change this to string. So sometimes you have to double check your data, because this object or this plugin is going to just generate these classes, and you can get weird crashes. So here we are just going to return alternate names from a list of strings. Okay, now we can change here the length from int and this string, because the server is going to return a string. And you can find the documentation, for example, inside the website, which provide this. They'll tell you the values, so, and their data types and other things. Okay, now I think we have finished to create here our models from the API. Now, for now here, we can create another data class here, another class which you can use it to store our constants. And as you can see here, I want to change the view of these packages here. You can just come here to compart and we remove needle. So I like when I finish things, I just collapse them. Now after that, there I can just create here another package, another class here, and this one is going to be an object. And I want to create the API constants. So this API constants here, we are going to host up our values or constants which we are going to use then. So you can create here constant val, and we can call this base URL. Okay, and here we can change, we are just taking that character there, that is going to be the endpoint. So the base URL is this here, which we have here. This one is just called the endpoint. So we are taking up the endpoint here, and we can rename this to endpoint. So sometimes you can have a lot of parameters, so you can create another object which is going to hold up the API parameters, which you can just pass them when we are going to create the character API or the service which is going to communicate, the retrofit thing which is going to communicate with the server. Now for that case here, I think we are finished up to create this API constant. So now we can just focus and create our character API. Okay, now here we can navigate to this API here and create a new class, and now we're going to create an interface. And here we are just going to call this character API. Now after this here, now we have created here our API. Now we can use retrofit in order to configure here our get method, because we are going to fetch the data from the API. Now we can use here at get, and we can use this retrofit here to get, and we can just create a normal suspend function here, and now we can call this get car. And basically here now you can, if you have parameters which you want to pass inside here, now we can pass them here. Now what we have to do here, we have to pass in the API endpoint, and we have already added inside our API constant, and here we can call this endpoints. And we're going to create later, when we are going to create the retrofit service center, we are going to pass in the base URL. So this one is going to return a list. So we are going to call this list. And here now we can call a list of character. And now we pass in the list of character which we have created here. So this is what is going to tell retrofit to retrieve the data. And it's going to create here our request header, which is going to post them inside the server, and then the server is going to return the response. So we can just navigate here. As you can see here, we have a simple way which is going to create the header. As you can see here, we have the method here, which the HTTP method we are passing here. Then we have the path. For example, if we have parameters, it's going to be passed here. And then we have the protocol, which is going to be used for the browsing here. And as you can see here now, we have the request header, which you are going to pass in, and we're going to leave this everything to Retrofit. So it's going to configure everything. What we have to do is just pass in the endpoint and the base URL, and everything else is going to be used by Retrofit. And if you want to intercept, for example, is where they can HTTP interceptors, or we can use OK HTTP to intercept the request and add other things which we want to send to the server. So for this case now, here we are done to create here API, and now we can just collapse this API here, and we can create a new package here, and we are going to create our repository because we are going to use the MVVM pattern here. So we can create here our repository, and after that here now we can create a new class, and here we can call this character repo. Okay, now here we're going to use data held for dependency injection here. So we're going just to create here, and we want to inject the constructor. So we want to class to be created by data held, so we can inject constructor by the here. And after that here now we can create the dependence which we want to be passed here. We can create val here, and we want to get the character API. And after that, now we can create here a suspend function, so we can get character. And this one is going to return characters. And we can get character API. Now this is just a simple application. That's why we are having not a lot of documentation here. So we are just getting here the character, and then we're going to read character here today where it. Okay, now here we have used here now annotation at inject constructor. So here we're telling that here know that this class is going to be created like this, and here we are providing the dependency, and here the dependency is just the character API. So now data hilt knows how to create the character repository, but it doesn't know how to create this character API service. And this character API service is just an interface. Also, it is just a third class party which don't own. So we want to create the retrofit here. And in order to do this, now we have to create the module. And here now we can just collapse this. And here we can create a new package. And here we can call this DI. So this stands for here. Now here we can create a new object. And we can call this character API module. So inside here now we are going to tell it's how we are going to get our code. So because here we don't own retrofit, and that is just inside an interface, and we cannot just constructor inject an interface like how we did here, because we used the constructor injection here and we did the API, and this one is just an interface. So we have to use character module, and here's how we are going to, and retrofit use the pattern in order to get the object. Now what we have to do, we have to provide here several annotations. So here we can annotate. And so now we are going to tell it this is going to be the module, and this one is going to know how to provide the instance. We are going to write here. So after that, now we can just annotate the that if in. So also this one is going to generate containers, because it generates containers for certain codes. So for example, if we want to provide a certain method and we want this to last in a scope of the application or in the scope of an activity. So for example, when the activity is going to be destroyed and also the object is going to be also destroyed, or can just use here for Ubuntu just done. So here we are just going to use scope annotation here at singleton. We want this component, then we can pass here a class. So basically here now we have finished to annotate this Now here it knows that we're going to add methods here. So what we have to do now, we have to get and we have to provide here. So now we have the method here, which is provide. And here we can pass in at. Here what we want to pass in is builder. So now here at provide tells field that is going to generate here a class, and which is going to provide a character. So the return type here is going to tell how it's going to be this constructed object here. And we are passing here a retrofit builder. So this one is going to be the dependence in order to create this character API here. And we want to be, this is the singleton component. So we don't want to be creating every time we access this object. So you want to have on this object. Now we can return here a builder. So it builds here a class. Here we can pass character API. So basically here now we have returned our character. Yeah, but the retrofit does not know how to create perfect picture. Now we can create another method here. We can just copy and duplicate this method here. And now here we can put. For now here we are going to provide a retrofit. Method does not have handles. And here we are just going to return it. Now here we can create our retrofit. Now we have to pass in here the base URL, and we can use the API cost here, and we can use the URL, and then we can add here a converter factory. And here we are going to use Oshi converter factory. Here we can here because we want to write the converter here and we are covered. Now for this case here now our API knows how to create. So what we have started here, we have here our constructor injection here. So we are telling him that is going to generate class and dependency character API. Now after this we don't know how to create this character API, which cannot construct inject class here. So what we have to do, we have to come here and create a module, and we have to annotate this with here module and that install in and provide a scope this to be a single component class. And after that now we can provide the method. So here we're just going to create our character API service, and after that now we have to tell how to create the retrofit object. Here now we are just creating the retrofit, and now here it knows how to create everything which we want. Now one thing which has remained here, now we have to create a class. Now we can just come here and create the application class. And this one is going to inherit the app. Okay, now here after we create this application class, we have to annotate Android app. So this one is going to trigger the code generation, and because everything which is going to be, the dependency is going to be inside this application class, so we can access where we want. So when we press here Control Q, you can see this one is going to make the application class where data components. So this one is going to generate all the data points we want. And also here you can just come here to the main activity, and we want to annotate this with 500 entry point. And this one is going to be the entry point, and then it's going to create a graph where it's going to provide this dependency. So as you can see here, mark an Android component set up for injection with built data component. Now for that case, we can now focus on our UI. I think we're just finished creating the foundation of the data and making everything good. Now let's start here to focus on the UI part and hook up everything. Okay, now let's come here to this UI tab here, and we can open up here and collapse theme here, and we can create a new package. And for now here, we are just going to call this home so that we can organize our code. And here now we can create a new coding class, and here we're just going to create a file here, and here we are just going to call this home. And here we are just going to pass in the composables. So this has Can just refactor this here to home. And now inside here, we can create a view model. And here we are just going to create a home view model. Okay, now here, in order to tell Hilt how to inject this view model, we have the way which we can use at Hilt view model. And here is just going to inject this. And what we have to do, we have to provide the at inject here. And we can pass in the dependency inside this constructor here. Now, for example, here we can, because we want to get the repository, so we can just create here a private file. And we get our character repository. And here also we have to implement the view model. Now, after that, here we can create a little bit of room here. And we can now create here a private file because we want to get the state. Now we are just going to keep this. And we are just going to call this state. And we can use a mutable state flow. And here we're just going to create an empty list for the first place. Now for that case here, we have to provide the variable which you can easily access the state here. And this one, we are just going to provide a state flow. And now here we can provide the get method here, and we are going to get the state which we have initialized there as a private variable. Now for that case here, we can create an init block so that when we are going to initialize this, we want to get the values from the API. Now we can call here the view model scope, and we can launch here the view model scope. And now what we have to do, we have to get the characters. So we can, now here we are going to get the characters, and then we can just use the state here, dot value. And we can reinitialize characters. Now for this case here, we have finished to create our view model. Now let's focus on the part of composable here so that we can finish up our application. Now let's create here a new composable, and this one we're going to call pin. And here now we can ask view models 12 model. And here now we can get this home view model by using the function here. And we can pass in here the model class. And we can class here. And after that, we want to get the state. And we can use the method here. We can use home view model, and we can get the state here. Now, put the values. After that, here now we can use column. We want to play our content. Now, for that case here, we can pass in. We want to show a progress indicator if state is going to be empty. So when we are fetching, we have to from the user. So we can use here and if state here, and we can get the state here, and we can this one is good. So if this one is going to be true, then we want to show a circular progress. We can use the items here so that we can add an item inside the composable. And what we can do here, we can use a circular progress indicator here. Now we want to pass in here a modifier, and we can pass here a modifier size, and we can wrap the content, and then we can pass in here the alignment, and we want this the align. Let's create a room so that we can work with. For that case here, we have created our indicator. Now we can add another items here so that we can do our state here. So what we want to do here is just a single item. We want to pass in a list of items. Here we can pass in state. Here we have a Now basically here we have a character. Now we can create another composable here, and we can call which. Okay, now here we can pass in the character, and we so that now what we can do here, now we can create the image. So this image painter here, we are going to use not the we are going to use a coil image loading library so that we can load the image on the website here, because this one is going to do synchronously. Yeah. So we call this remember, and basically here we can pass the that, and here what we have to do can use character, and we can call here, and because it right a URL is here, so we can check out the data which is going to be returned here. So we're going to now what we can do here now can create here a card. So this one is going to hold up the image, and here we can pass gate. Here we can use similar thing. We can pass in a shake, and what we can do here, we can pass in a modifier. We can pass it here. We can import this right in here. Now what we want to do here, we want to display the name inside the image, so we can use a box here. Now we can pass in here image, and we can use the painter here. Now and now here we can pass in a modifier in order to the size. Otherwise we are not going to load the image and we cannot anything. So you want the size of. Now what we want to do here, we want max width. We can provide here another thing which is called scale, so that here we can use. So this one is going to scale until count of the size of image holder here. Now what we can do also here, we can go office, and now we can pass in here the color. We can use the material here. So what we're doing here, we're just getting the color from the material theme, which is going to be surface, and we want the opacity here. This is good. And so even if we change the theme here, for example, if we go to that scene, so this is going to be reflected out. So we don't have to worry that thing. Okay, now here we can pass in a modifier, and pass in a modifier, and we can pass the line. Then pass in that we want to align, and we can color, and we want content color here, because we're staging here we surface, and we want the so it be the surface color, which is white. Now after that here, now we can create a column, and adding now here we can pass it, and the now here we can now for that name, I think we are finished to call our UI. Now we can call this character is here, so we can add in. Okay, now we can jump inside yeah, our main activity. Now we now let's try here to run our application. So when we build up our project, we are getting here an error, and as you can see here, we forgot it, and we forgot here. We can just look here manifest, and we can add here the move. And here, as you can see, we have here our character application. And also we have to use vision here, and we can pass. So otherwise, our application is going to crash because we are going to use the internet outside and to add this application code here. Now let's try to rerun again our application. Now our app here is crashing, and when we look at, you can see that we have a problem here. To X providing an int data type, so one can come here to model character, and I think the best and turning an int but data type thing, and because the API which Danny has got in the documentation, so that's why we are getting this error. So let's try to rerun a Dina application. The app is long stand as it. So for now, let's leave it here. See you in the next video.